Berlin, October 1942. Hans Werner Lerche stands in the drizzle, watching a crate being opened at Tempelhof Airfield. Inside, an American fighter, slim frame, long nose, bubble canopy. The label reads, North American P-51 Mustang. One general laughs out loud. This is what they send us to fear? Lerche tilts his head. He's a test pilot, a professional, but even he smirks. The engine is Allison built, underpowered. Poor climb rate. Designed for the British, rushed through production. Unimpressive. He scribbles in his report later that night. Handling is steady, acceleration weak. Cockpit visibility excellent. Not recommended for Luftwaffe combat adoption. Someone lights a cigarette in the officer's lounge. They'll need more than cowboy planes if they want to reach Berlin. What they don't know, what not one man in that room sees coming, is that this rejected design will soon own the skies above Europe. In late 1942, the Luftwaffe still owns the sky. Messerschmitts slash through bomber formations. Focke-Wulfs scream down from the sun. American crews call it the milk run, but most of them never make it home. Hans Werner Lerche believes in German air power. Everyone does. Precision engineering. Honed steel. Pilots trained from youth. Doctrine tested in Spain, perfected in France, baptized over London. Germany doesn't just build aircraft. It sculpts them. Every rivet, every curve. A work of war-born art. Across the channel, American squadrons fly machines that seem clumsy, overweight, underpowered. The P-40 Tomahawk. The B-17 Flying Fortress. Mass-produced giants from factories that once made toasters and tractors. Berlin mocks them. Democracy builds for everyone, which means it builds for no one. At Luftwaffe headquarters, charts show enemy losses. American factories churn. But to German eyes, that's not strategy, it's waste. Why build 1,000 good enough planes when 10 great ones will do? Hans Werner reads the specs on the new Mustang, a British-funded project made by an American car company. Not even the U.S. Army Air Corps wanted it at first. He shrugs. They don't understand altitude warfare or turning dynamics or anything that matters. But something odd happens in England. A Royal Air Force squadron takes delivery of the new Mustangs. They swap the engine. A Merlin, the same power plant as the Spitfire. Suddenly, the P-51 isn't just faster, it's untouchable. In March 1943, word reaches Berlin. British Mustangs intercepted us over Rouen. We couldn't catch them. German command dismisses it. Lucky break. Wind drift. A fluke. Hans Werner notes it, but lets it go. The war is still theirs. Their science. Their skies. Factories in Germany remain elite but fragmented. Some still waiting on ball bearings from Sweden. Tires from Czechoslovakia. In Detroit, Ford is building an entire aircraft plant from scratch and calling it Willow Run. One aircraft every hour. But that feels distant, hypothetical, not real. until a Mustang appears over France again. Then another, then 10, each one faster than expected, each one flying farther than any escort has ever dared. Hans Werner glances at a map. It's just a speck, a small shadow approaching the edge of German airspace. He doesn't know it yet, but that shadow will grow into a storm. Summer 1943. On the chalk cliffs above Etretat, a flak unit spots something strange. 2 black dots, too small for bombers, too fast for Spitfires. The spotter squints. American markings, fighters. His superior scoffs. Impossible. They don't have the range. But the dots don't vanish. They orbit. They linger. Then they dévisage and kill. An entire reconnaissance crew is lost before command even scrambles an alert. The report says it plainly. Unknown enemy aircraft engaged patrol south of Rouen. Superior speed. High altitude performance. Recovered west without pursuit. Lerche reads it over coffee. He frowns. The description matches the Mustang, but the distances don't. That's outside its maximum range. He brings it up in briefing. The colonel waves him off. Tailwinds, fuel error. Their tanks don't stretch that far. But the incidents grow. August. A Mi-110 returns with its fuselage shredded. The pilot is shaken. I dove to 600 kilometers per hour. He stayed on me the whole way. Hans Werner inspects the damage. He finds a 50 Schweiber round embedded in the engine cowling. He fingers the edge of the hole. It's not jagged. It's clean. This wasn't luck, he mutters. This was control. At a maintenance depot near Lille, a junior mechanic uncovers the tail of a downed Mustang. He taps it with a wrench. Aluminum alloy, light but strong. Stamped North American Aviation, Inglewood, California. He turns to his supervisor. They're building these on the other side of the world, and they're already here. The officer shrugs. So what? They'll never reach Berlin. But Hans Werner stares at the tail fin. It shouldn't be here. Not yet. And yet, somehow, it is. November 1943. Morning fog hangs low over the airfield at Juvincourt. Hans Werner Lerche straps into a Bf 109 for a standard patrol over central France. The skies seem clear until they are not. 2 Mustangs appear out of thin air, gray streaks against the clouds. They dive like falcons. Hans yanks the stick, rolls hard left, but they're still there. Tight turn, full throttle. Climb out, he grits. The Mustang follows. Effortlessly. It doesn't just keep up, it gains. Lerche barely makes it back. The canopy is riddled with holes. Fuel leaks from a ruptured line. His mechanic is stunned. You were chased across the entire sector? He nods. They're not escorts anymore. They're hunters. Later that night, a map is unrolled in briefing. Red pins mark Mustang sightings. Rouen, Chartres, Orléans, even Reims. One officer laughs nervously. Are they breeding them underground? The mood shifts from amusement to unease. Command insists it's temporary. They'll run out of gas eventually. But they don't. The Mustangs stay longer. Strike deeper. Return faster. In the Ardennes, a convoy radio goes silent mid-transmission. An airman watching from a hilltop mutters, "It's them again." They wait until the last truck passes, then they hit the lead and tail. No way out. At a downed aircraft site, Lurchie examines the Mustang again. He crouches near the wing, feels the smooth skin, the seamless lines. Then he notices something. Every bolt, identical. Every part, labeled. Standardistas. He whispers to himself, "They don't build fighters. They build systems." Back at base, fuel deliveries stall. Train tracks bombed. Bridges out. Messerschmitts sit idle. Dozens. Full tanks, no parts. One junior officer shouts, "We have aces ready to fly." The logistics chief just sighs, and nothing for them to fly. Meanwhile, the Mustang swarms grow. Each time, a little farther east, a little bolder. Hans Werner looks to the west horizon one evening. Just beyond the twilight glow, he knows they're waiting. And next time, they'll come farther still. January 11th, 1944. The sky over Oschersleben is a rolling gray ceiling. Snow sits heavy on the airfield's edge. Hans Werner Lurche hears the rumble before he sees them. 100 American bombers, tight formation, headed for the Junkers factory. But this time, they're not alone. The Mustangs come first, low, fast, with purpose. They slice through the lead wave of Focke Wolves. No hesitation, no warning, just silver flashes, then black smoke. Lurche runs to the command bunker. 2 squadrons already lost. 3 more grounded, frozen fuel lines, no replacement parts. He looks at the wall map, red threads from England. Arcs of invasion. They're not probing anymore. They're executing. That afternoon, Hans climbs back into his Messerschmitt. Altitude, 28,000 feet, east of Braunschweig. He sees it, just a shadow at first. Then the glint of a bubble canopy. It's a Mustang. The enemy sees him too. Hans dives, full throttle. The Messerschmitt wails, controls stiffen. Airframe groans, but the Mustang stays with him. Like a ghost. Hans twists, climbs, drops flaps, anything. Nothing works. The Mustang keeps pace, then passes him. Not in a lunge. Not with brute force. Gracefully. Casually. The American doesn't fire. He just looks back, tilts his wings, then disappears into the clouds. Hans lands an hour later in silence. The mechanics wait for a report, but he walks past them, straight into the officer's mess. He pours a coffee. His hands shake. Across the room, someone's tuning a radio. The BBC. The voice says, "Mustangs escorted bombers all the way to central Germany today. None were turned back." He turns it off. A colonel asks him, "How was the air today?" Hans doesn't answer. He just says one word. Different. 2 days later, Hans Werner Lurche receives a captured field manual. American Logistics. He flips through the pages at first with disinterest. Charts, diagrams, acronyms. But then, something catches his eye. One P-51 Mustang is completed every 66 minutes at Inglewood, California. He rereads the sentence. Once, twice. At Merceburg, he walks out to inspect a wrecked Mustang. The tail is sheared, the wing torn open, but everything else, pristine. Inside the fuselage, factory codes. Kansas City, Los Angeles, Detroit. He traces the welds. Smooth, repeatable, not handmade. You could build these like bicycles, he mutters. Nearby, a young mechanic stands over a grounded Focke-Wulf. Missing 2 valves. Wrong engine type. Still waiting for spares. 6 weeks now. Hans stares at the German aircraft. A masterclass in design, but delicate. Then he looks back at the Mustang. Bruised, burnt, but simple. Brutally simple. He thinks of the American assembly lines, of Willow Run spitting out liberators. In the officer's briefing that night, someone scoffs. They build for quantity, not quality. But Hans is quiet. He's seen the opposite. The Mustang doesn't sacrifice performance, it enhances it by being buildable. Later, in private, he reads an intercepted memo. Mustang deployment expanding to all bomber escort groups. Goal, full coverage to Berlin and back. He stares at the paper, slowly folds it. They're not testing anymore. They're scaling. At the mess hall, a pilot recounts how his squadron was ambushed near Leipzig. 2 Mustangs dropped from the clouds. They didn't chase. They chose. They picked off the slowest, like wolves. Hans hears it all. He doesn't speak, but his mind races. This isn't just a new plane. It's a weapon born from an idea that speed, reach, and firepower aren't enough. What wins wars is repetition. He leaves the hall in silence. Outside, the wind is bitter. In the dark, he sees a formation overhead, just silhouettes. But he knows they're Mustangs, and they'll be back tomorrow. April, 944. The sun rises over Wetzlar, but the airfield remains quiet. No engines roar, no wheels lift. Half the Messerschmitts are grounded, no fuel. The rest, missing parts, damaged flaps, cracked landing gear. Hans Werner Lursche walks past them, ghost of iron in neat rows. Once lethal, now still. He enters HQ. The walls, once covered in mission maps, are stripped bare. Only one chart remains. It shows losses. Red ink, month by month. Fighter Group JG-26, 48% combat loss rate. JG-3, grounded due to fuel rationing. JG-11, absorbed into a mixed unit. No replacements. A general speaks, low voice. We lost 355 aircraft in January alone. Someone mutters, "That's more than we can build in a season." Hans reads a captured American flyer's diary. "We own the air. They don't even show up anymore." He flips the page. "They're fast, but they're tired. I don't think they believe they can win." That one line stabs, because it's true. Hans thinks back to 1940. Dover, London, clear skies filled with Stukas. Now, their aces are dead, their fuel gone, their wings clipped. A colonel in the room whispers, what no one dares say aloud. We dismissed the Mustang when we first saw it. He pauses, looks at Hans. And now, we can't outrun it. Hans nods. Slowly. Bitterly. Not in anger, and in clarity. He walks outside. A Mustang roars overhead, vapor trails glinting in the spring light. No flak. No fighters to challenge it. He watches it vanish over the horizon. A mechanic lights a cigarette beside him. You think they'll reach Berlin? Hans doesn't answer. Because in his mind, they already have. May 1944. Hans Werner Lerche stands inside the wreckage of a Mustang downed near Fulda. The wings are shattered. The fuselage burned. But the parts, they're labeled like furniture. R12, left flap, F07, front gear strut, S19, fuel line, type 3, every bolt, identical, every wire, color-coded. A young German technician whistles. You could fix this with a wrench and 10 minutes. Hans doesn't smile. He sees it clearly now. The Mustang isn't a masterpiece. It's a tool, made for war, not worship. Across the channel, American supply depots sort these parts by crate, by hour. Engines arrive in pallets, tires in stacks, propellers in rows, fresh off Ford's River Rouge assembly line. In Germany, a Messerschmitt needs hand-fitted valves from Munich. A Focke-Wulf's tail fin only fits one variant. When one part fails, the whole bird waits. Sometimes for weeks. The Luftwaffe fly masterpieces with brittle bones. America flies blunt hammers. But those hammers never stop swinging. Hans watches a film reel captured from the Allies. Convoys of trucks, jeeps, aircraft parts rolling off ships. Labeled, sealed, pre-assigned. Red Ball, Express, 24 hours, non-stop. Fuel, parts, ammo, direct to the front. He turns to the logistics officer beside him. How long for us to get a spare landing gear to Calais? The man shrugs. 10 days? If the train isn't bombed. Hans looks back at the reel. The Americans don't just move faster. They move smarter. In Normandy, a Luftwaffe unit waits on spark plugs. 2 pilots share one functioning plane. They flip a coin to fly. Meanwhile, Mustang units replace engines between dawn and noon. One mechanic jokes, "It's easier than changing oil on a truck." Hans leans against a hangar wall. He doesn't feel defeat. He feels revelation. This was never about talent. It was about flow. The Mustang was just the tip of the spear. The real weapon was the system behind it. June 1944. The invasion has begun. Normandy burns. Columns of American steel pour inland. Shermans, trucks, endless men. And above it all, the Mustang watches. Hans Werner Lerche studies a new intelligence report. 30 American factories contribute to the P-51 supply chain. One makes only wings. Another, radiators. A third, just canopy glass. It sounds chaotic, but somehow it works. The Allies don't centralize. They modularize. One destroyed plant doesn't halt production. It just reroutes. Germany meanwhile, builds like a cathedral. One perfect blueprint. No substitutions. And now, the roof is caving in. At a debriefing, a captured American logistics officer explains it simply. We build for loss. You build for pride. Hans doesn't argue. He can't. In Ulm, a German aircraft designer curses. His jet prototype sits idle, missing copper wire, shortage, Allied bombing, supply chain shattered. At Willow Run, Mustangs roll off the line every hour. Tests flown by women in coveralls. No ceremony, no applause, just another shift. Hans visits a Luftwaffe engineer captured near Caen. They speak through the fence. The man says, "You know what stunned me most?" Hans nods. "The fuel?" The man shakes his head. "The choices." He leans closer. The Mustang was rejected by the Americans at first. Not enough range. Too light. But the British asked. So they adapted. Hans stays silent. They don't cling to perfect plans. They build, test, revise, faster than we can decide. That night, Hans finds the original test memo he wrote in 1942. The one that dismissed the Mustang as weak, underpowered, unfit for German use. He folds it slowly, lights a match, watches it burn. Somewhere overhead, another Mustang passes, low, confident. Not a miracle, not a marvel, just the inevitable product of a country that builds to win. By fall of 1944, the numbers no longer lie. The U.S. has produced over 15,000 P-51 Mustangs. At peak tempo, one every 66 minutes, across multiple plants. Each shipped in crates, reassembled in England, and flying combat sorties within days. Germany can barely maintain fuel reserves for a single week of full-scale operations. Fighter production drops. Pilot training shortens from months to weeks. Luftwaffe Group JG-54 reports more aircraft downed by mechanical failure or lack of fuel than by enemy fire. Hans Werner Lersche reads a compiled after-action brief. In it, a single sentence strikes like artillery. The Mustang has eliminated sanctuary. There is no safe airspace now. Not behind rivers, not over cities, not even deep in the Reich. American bombers fly all the way to Berlin and back, and the Mustangs never leave their side. Hans visits a hospital wing near Kassel. Inside, young pilots, burns, crutches, empty stairs. One whispers, "They came out of the sun. I didn't even see them." Another, "I fired, but he was faster, like he knew what I would do." Hans says nothing, but the truth sits heavy in his chest. The Mustang isn't just fast. It's consistent, durable, replaceable. A P-51 costs $50,000. A Messerschmitt 262 jet, over $200,000 and 3 times the labor. And when one Mustang is shot down, another takes off within the hour. In a final meeting with Luftwaffe staff, a senior commander says it plain. "We didn't lose the air war in combat. We lost it in the factories." No one argues. No one speaks. Hans leaves the room. steps onto the runway, watches another line of grounded fighters, silent, still. A memory surfaces. Berlin, 1942, the first time he saw the Mustang. The laughter, the dismissal. He breathes into the cold air and realizes they thought America was building planes. But what they were really building was victory. Arizona, 1953. The desert air is dry and sharp. Children crowd the fence at Davis-Monthan Field. A loudspeaker crackles. And now, the P-51 Mustang, the plane that ended the war early. Hans Werner Lursche stands in the back, sunglasses, hat low. He doesn't clap, doesn't smile. The Mustang roars overhead, engine pure and smooth. It loops, rolls. The crowd gasps. A boy beside him tugs his father's sleeve. Is that what beat the niece? The man nods. That's the one. Hans lights a cigarette. The match trembles slightly in his fingers. He remembers the first time he saw it. Berlin, 1942. Unpainted, underpowered, laughed out of the room. He exhales, watches the smoke curl into the sun. A former American pilot spots him, older now, slower. They exchange glances. No salute. Just eyes that have seen too much. The American offers a coffee. We always wondered what you thought of it. Hans shrugs, looks up at the Mustang circling once more. We called it a toy, he says quietly. Turns out it was a scalpel. The pilot chuckles. You guys were good. Hans nods. We were precise. You were endless. A pause. The engine fades into the distance. Then Hans whispers, almost to himself, we built machines. You built momentum. He crushes the cigarette under his boot. The announcer says something else. Applause rises. But Hans doesn't hear it. He turns, walks away from the field, doesn't look back. And somewhere above the desert sky, the Mustang vanishes into blue.